that. That's just essentializing, and I feel that it's worthless. It's the same as with women. Oh, women are like this, women are like that, men are like this, men are like that. It's like, let's look at what do we ask of women? What do we ask of men? What is the system that people are growing up in? What are the boys being taught they have to be, and what are girls being taught they have to be, and what are they being taught, how are they being taught to relate to each other? All these things, whether it's a millennial or a girl or whatever group or individual that you're talking about, I really think that we pay very little attention to how we kind of lock people into certain narratives. Also, depending whatever race you are or whatever, we get locked into these stereotypes that are amazingly hard to break free of, even if they have nothing to do with you or your experience.
Couldn't agree more. For everybody out there, we are talking with Carina Chocano. We are talking about You Play the Girl. It's her new book, and it is available everywhere. So stay with us. We're going to be right back. You're listening to Answers for the Family.
Founded over 30 years ago to meet the needs of families in crisis, West Shield has continually focused on resolving issues that negatively impact families and businesses. Our signature therapeutic transportation service helps to ensure that adolescents in crisis are safely transported to specialized schools, programs, and treatment centers with unsurpassed experience and success. We are supported by our full-service licensed investigation agency that has legally, professionally, and compassionately located hundreds of runaways and teens. We are experienced and qualified to help, offering solutions which may include referrals to our international network of top professionals in the fields of educational consulting, psychology, psychiatry, and investigations. Simply put, West Shield Adolescent Services and West Shield Investigations are the best solutions when your family is facing a personal crisis. Call 1-800-899-8585. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 1-800-899-8585. Or visit our website at westshield.com. Thank you.
And we're back. You're listening to Answers for the Family, and we are talking about how the world is changing for women and girls. The book is You Play the Girl. We're speaking with Carina Chocano, and we are really touching on some incredible subjects, and I'm very, very happy to have her on the show with us. Carina, while doing some research for this interview, I read that Roman Polanski commented on the Me Too movement. This is about 2 weeks ago. And he said, this is the kind of mass hysteria that occurs in society from time to time. Sometimes it's very dramatic, like the French Revolution, the St. Bartholomew Day massacre, or McCarthyism in the U.S. Everyone is backing the movement out of fear, adding that he thinks it's totally ridiculous. Now, before you comment on it, I need to say something as well. So personally, I think that associating the Me Too movement with the French Revolution, any kind of massacre or McCarthyism, is just ridiculous. And for those people out there, I know we have younger people out there that don't know who this man is. He was arrested for drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl and then fled the United States after admitting to statutory rape. He's the last person that our media should be giving a microphone to comment about this subject. Carina, what's your take on this response to women that are speaking out against their accusers?
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, it was it was just an amazing response. And there's so many aspects of it. First of all, I mean, comparing the French Revolution to McCarthyism, for instance, is so fascinatingly off kilter. Like he's talking about everything from like an illegitimate, with politically motivated witch hunt to, this starving populace rising up against tyranny. Exactly. So, I mean, it's interesting how he's lumping these things together. But that aside, Yeah, I mean, Roman Polanski, it's interesting. Roman Polanski fled the United States and has, been living outside the United States for, I don't know, since the 70s, I believe. But but until very recently, I don't think he faced any consequences as an artist. And, this is one of the interesting things that's coming up now. Like what you said earlier, do we separate the artist from the art? Do we still honor and respect someone like Roman Polanski or Woody Allen, or until recently Harvey Weinstein, as an artist and a cultural figure, even when we know what, the kinds of things that they've done. And what's fascinating to me is, what's happened in the past year is very much rooted in the ability to shift the perspective on the story. And this is sort of what I really want to talk about in my book, which is when we only get a certain perspective, we only frame stories in a certain way. So it's not that people didn't really know, apparently, about Harvey Weinstein. Apparently everybody knew, or a lot of people knew, and it was a so-called open secret. And that's true of Woody Allen, and certainly Roman Polanski, everybody knew because it was news for decades. But we still didn't have the frame in which we could talk about it as being unacceptable. We were still completely rooted in the frame where the genius could get away with it, or the powerful mogul could get away with it, or somehow these things were separate from each other. And I think that, Polanski is obviously, just to psychoanalyze him, is obviously responding to a shift that doesn't favor him. Mm-hmm. And he's able to say, oh, look, this is hysterical, and now we're going to throw out the whole culture with the bathwater. But the thing is that's not really true. And, people confuse this idea of examining stories or questioning stories with censorship. And it's not censorship at all. It's really just, I think, putting things up against a kind of truth barometer. You know what I mean? Sometimes sometimes I think, say, as a woman, you'll go see something and it resonates as untrue. It's just nothing about the characters feels true. And I think most men are used to going to the movies and seeing themselves reflected in some way, even if they're not an action hero. Their perspective and their point of view and their feelings about certain things ring true, But for everyone else, and this is people who aren't white, people who aren't straight, people who aren't men, it things, the most dominant stories tend to ring false, or else you just don't see yourself. The other day I saw something, an interview, and this, I think he was a rapper, said something about his former excess and said, everyone wants to be surrounded by beautiful women. And I thought, and the interviewer was a woman and didn't cut in at that moment, but I thought, it's so interesting. We're so used to hearing that. Everyone wants to be surrounded. Well, not everyone.
Right.
Not at least half the people. And it's fascinating how we just erase that perspective, and we only validate one. So I think what Polanski is responding to is the sudden feeling of, earth shifting in a way where the only perspective that was validated and centered is now being questioned. And he reacts in a kind of, he dismisses it, and because that's what the culture has also taught us to do. That's hysterical is a very gendered comment. It's dismissed as hysterical, therefore female and stupid and invalid. And it's not surprising in a way, but is it, where will we move past, will more people see him as a kind of a dinosaur? I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. We have a comment coming in, mm-hmm. And as I look at it, and this is coming in from a male. Mm-hmm. This says, on one hand, I believe that women have more opportunities available to them than ever before. Yet I believe that more changes are needed to provide an easier path for each generation of girls to find their own true identities and fulfilling their own dreams. Thank you for shining a light on the subject. And this is from Mark in North Carolina. So what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I think that, the first thing I always try to say is like, the first thing that I sort of reject is this essentialism of like, men are this way, or a man can't understand, or a woman can't understand. I kind of reject that. And so I'm always heartened when men are able to step out, especially since they are in the sort of privileged position and could potentially defend that privileged position, which is what, people who have more power tend to do, want to hold on to it. So I really appreciate it when men are able to step outside and see things from another point of view. And that's been the most gratifying thing for me, I think, with this book, is how many men have liked it and recommended it, and also have told me that it opened their eyes to another perspective. And I think that that's what, stories should do, that's what good stories do, is put us in other people's shoes. And the idea that's been so pervasive in Hollywood that the only universal quote unquote perspective is white and male and straight is very damaging, because it teaches everyone that these are the only people that count. And I think that's
go ahead.
I think that's what's led to certain things like, say, reduced sentences for people like the Stepford rapist, because the judge says, "Oh, I see myself in that fine young man." That fine young man was raping an unconscious girl behind a dumpster until some, exchange students intervened. So he's not such a great, But anyway, I do think that he's right, and that there are more opportunities, for sure. But we still have this. We're still coming up against a lot of the same systemic problems. Everything from the pay gap to the lack of affordable daycare or universal preschool, and the idea that the only people who are actually responsible for the next generation of humans are women. So we still rely on this idea that, once a woman has a baby, she can just step off. And it's like that relies on so many assumptions, from the idea that she's married to someone who supports the family all by himself, to like the fact that, the idea that she doesn't want to continue doing whatever she was educated to do or dreams of doing. All these things are stories that we don't question enough, and that keep us kind of locked in an old-fashioned view, I think, that does not work for most people in this day and age. In fact, it works for fewer and fewer people in this day and age. The middle class is falling apart. There's not, you have to be quite affluent to have a single income family. So why is there no daycare or preschool or help for, families with young children? Why do public schools get out at 3 when the jobs don't? All these kinds of things that we just focus on men and women, and these ideas about what women are at their core and what men are. And these things, I don't know how, I think we need to start separating these stories from our reality.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more. And as you were talking, I had this vision that you and I need to talk in regards to another book about why we're allowing our politicians to decimate the middle class. But that's another show. But
it's all related. This is all related also to, corporate capitalism and other, big forces, all the big forces. Yeah.
You got it. We actually have more questions coming in, and again, I want to take the time to thank those that take the time. I know that we have a lot of people that are middle class that are working, and that send in questions ahead of time, so that we can get them asked. And I want them to know I always appreciate them taking the time to do that. And most of them listen later on. They'll listen in the evening through iTunes or something. So again, it's much appreciated. this question, and which is a comment as well, says,